Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tatati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Raghunatham Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabrahutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishaka Vikamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancha Nagorangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Pratitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, welcome everyone, and I was asked to go over the homework assignments. I'll have to open them up on my computer. 1 second. Krishna Krishna. Here we go. So I'll ask you to, answer the answers, and so let's begin. I guess you can see this. So the Krishna consciousness movement is based on the authority of Srila Rupa Goswami. Therefore, we are known as, what's the answer? Someone can either go off on mute or type in the chat. Well, I can't see the chat because I'm sharing my screen. So,
Rupanugas.
Rupanugas, yes, we are known as Rupanugas. Very good. The purpose of the Nectar of Devotion is to educate and elevate one to the position of
Goswami.
Goswami. Yeah, that's right. Yes. I mean, of course, that could be answered in many ways, right? It's Goswamis or Vaishnavas or Rupanugas could be there also. To explain the concept of Bhakti Ras, which means, what does Bhakti Ras mean?
Mellow.
Yeah, mellow. That's one way that it's a really hard thing to translate into English. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur called it mellow, which is different than the usual. Like when we think of somebody, if somebody says Achyuta Prabhu is mellow, that means he's just kind of a soft-spoken person. But here it means something different, right? Yeah. Material sense enjoyment has 2 defects. And what is the meaning of Chapala Sukha?
Flickering happiness.
Yes, flickering happiness. Sukha means happiness, and Chapala we know, flickering. And blank leads to Bhoga Tyag, a cycle of enjoyment, then renunciation. So what is the blank there? Do you know?
Sense gratification.
Yes, sense gratification, right. So then in D, to teach us how to stimulate blank and be situated in the position to enjoy our real blissful life in 5 different transcendental mellows. Anyone know what that blank is? No?
It's our original love for Krishna.
Original love for Krishna. Very good. to teach us how to stimulate our original love for Krishna and be situated in a position to enjoy our real blissful life in five to right. Okay, so then that's everything from the preface. And then in the introduction, there is the Mangala Charana, and defines the object of the book, Vrindavan Krishna, the reservoir of all
Rasas.
Akila Rasamritamurti.
right, exactly. Rasas, yes, yes. Very good. It's pays obeisances and offers benedictions that the nectar of devotional service will and inundate everyone in auspiciousness. Anyone know that? Is that in the book? Let's see. No, I guess it's not exactly a direct quote because I don't see the word inundate in. So let's see. Offering benediction, nectar, devotional service will. Actually, I don't know the answer to that one. So then the two analogies that are given, the sharks in the ocean, we spoke a lot about that. And we even, I think we showed a video of the volcanoes in the middle of the ocean. And the attitude of a preacher, he should see himself as
Unfit.
what's that?
Unfit.
Unfit, yes, very fit. A mere instrument in the hands of previous acharyas. And so then it goes into a little bit about the content. So the first wave is what we were studying up until this week. That's Samanya Bhakti. And then Sadhana Bhakti is devotional service in practice. And then Bhava Bhakti is devotional service in ecstasy. And Prema Bhakti is devotional service in love of Godhead, pure love of Godhead. So then then the definition of devotional service, Anyabhilashita Sunyam. When first class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of what kind of what? Anyone know?
Sense gratification.
Sense gratification. Yes, sense gratification. Yes, yeah.
Devoid of speculative knowledge.
Pardon me?
Devoid of speculative knowledge.
Oh,
right?
speculative knowledge. Yeah, that's right. It's talking about, sorry, not sense gratification, because that's covered here in fruit of action, but speculative knowledge, yes. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires, right? I'm just doing this from memory. I'm not, Pure devotional service is an active engagement. One can perform action in his
Favorable in his body, mind, and words.
Okay, body, mind, and words. Very good. Okay, then chapter 1. This
There
is a
are
little tricky.
four dashes. Prabhu.
What's that? There's
There are
4
four.
dashes, so what's the answer?
Oh, body, mind, and it includes the word and.
Oh, and, okay. Very good.
Okay.
Now this is a little trickier because I think we got this somewhat from the lecture and some of those screenshots that I showed you, rather than just, so sinful action causes,
Bondage.
well, yes, causes bondage. It causes aparabdha karma, unmanifest reactions. I'll before the exam, I'll send you the these charts so that you can look at them, because that's, I was going a lot by charts here. And so aparabdha leads to 2 things. If you recall, I know we went over this quickly, but kuta, the sinful inclination, it also creates parabdha karma. And parabdha, yeah, so this is just I wouldn't worry about this whole section because it's not, I'm not going to present it like this in the exam. And I think I presented it much clearer than it is said here. So from sinful desire comes sinful action. That's the point here. From sin comes sinful action, and the ultimate cause of sinful action is ignorance. Okay, but don't have to worry too much about that. So Krishna consciousness is all auspicious, leads to the performance of. Do you have an answer for that?
Actual
No one?
welfare activities.
Pardon me?
Actual welfare activities.
Actual welfare activities. Okay, these are the performance of actual welfare activities for humanity at large. And then the evidence is from the blank and pleases all living entities. What's the blank in B?
Persons engaged in Krishna conscious activities.
Okay.
The sentence in the book is persons engaged in Krishna conscious activities. They are doing the best service to the whole world and pleasing everyone, including the trees and animals.
Acha, okay. And it endows one with?
Good qualities of the demigods.
Huh. Okay. Oh yes, and that's the verse. Yes, yasti bhaktir bhagavati kinchana. All right. Happiness in Krishna consciousness. Of the three kinds of happiness, happiness derived from pure devotional service is the highest because it is
Eternal.
eternal. Yeah. Karmi's and Mayavadi's happiness is, I guess, what is it? Temporary? Is that the word?
Yeah.
Okay. Because the rarity of pure devotional service can only be attained through
Mercy of a pure devotee.
mercy of the pure devotee. Very good. Krishna does not easily award pure devotional service because
He becomes purchased by the devotees.
yes, he becomes first. Very good. Happiness of becoming one with the Supreme cannot be compared with the happiness derived from, I guess, what would that is that sense gratification or something like that? Or no, this would be no, not sense. It would be impersonal.
Ocean of devotional service.
Wait, cannot be. Oh, the happiness of becoming one with the Supreme cannot be compared with the happiness derived from the ocean of devotional service. Very good. Okay, and then finally, Krishna attracts everyone, but devotional service attracts him. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Therefore, devotional service is greater than Krishna. And Srimati Radharani is the symbol of devotional service, the highest degree. Okay, very good. So let's go on to today's talk, which is it's actually a pretty simple chapter. It covers a few important points. And let's begin that. Let me just open it up here.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, there is another part of the homework assignment, which is the direct questions. Where were like the definitions of papam and kutam.
Yeah.
I think it's on page 89.
Yeah, well, we can go over those next week then.
Okay, sure.
Okay. All right, so we're talking about the chapter, the first stages of devotional service. Let me just get my notes here. So the first thing the book talks about is the three different categories of devotional service, which we discussed to some extent last week, right? And so devotional service in practice, and that's called sadhana. Devotional service in ecstasy, that's called bhava. And devotional service in pure love of Godhead, and that is called prema. And Prabhupada talks about how there's so many subheadings within those, but that these are the three main ones. And then Rupa Goswami goes on to talk about how the eligibility to, or the qualification, we could say, for taking the devotional service, it generally comes, well, it comes from two places, right? The previous execution of devotional service, right, that we have done in a previous life, and or the association of a pure devotee. And Prabhupada spoke about this one time. The verse, I think it's chapter 9, verse 28, or is it chapter 7, verse 28? Yesham tuntakapapam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam tridavrata. So if anyone here is good at finding verses, I think it's the 28th verse, but I can't remember if it's chapter 7 or chapter 9. I think it's 20. I think it's 9. I could be wrong. It says that pardon me?
7.28.
Oh, 7?
7.28.
Okay, so I knew the 28 anyway. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful activities are eradicated, they can engage in devotional service with determination. So the devotees asked Prabhupada, well, is this how we should think? And Prabhupada said that, he said that we had performed pious activities in the previous life, and devotees were saying, I don't think I performed any pious activities in previous lives. And Prabhupada said, I have made your good fortune. So that is the general mood of a devotee, that they don't think, oh, I've done so much bhakti in previous lives, I'm so pakka. No, we think I'm, what's that song? Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya Koroe Dase Tinape Kaya Tihina. We think that we're just made of the blessings of our spiritual masters, right? That's the appropriate mood. So, and Prabhupada encourages that, or he says, even if there is no continuity, if only by chance a person takes interest in a pure devotee's instruction, he can be accepted and advance in devotional service. And then the proof of it in the next sentence is, for persons who have a natural taste for understanding books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, devotional service is easy than those who just are accustomed to mental speculation and argumentative processes. So this is not a small thing. It's the mood that a devotee cultivates, that I'm made of the blessings of the previous acharyas, of my spiritual master, of the other devotees. And that is really the kind of devotional mood that we would want to cultivate. Okay, any questions or comments on that point? Okay, so then the book goes on to talk about sadhana, practice, right? Literally, sadhana means practice. And when you think about it, anything you want to be good at takes practice, right? Right now, the Wimbledon tennis matches are going on, right? So if you see those people playing tennis, they must have practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced years and years and years of practicing tennis to be able to play like they're playing, right? Or I don't know, when I was living in India, what was his name? Sachin was the famous cricket player. I think he must be retired by now. But how many years did he practice and practice to play cricket to be like that? So anything you want to be good at takes practice. So what to speak of what it takes to get out of the material world and return and find and actually attain the goal of life, right? How much practice it must take to do that. Or I think the Olympics are coming up soon, right? So how much practice all those people who made it into the Olympic Games, right? So what to speak of? So here we're hearing about practice. And Prabhupada gives a very general statement, which applies to those tennis players, the cricket players, the mathematicians. It says, practice means employing our senses in some particular type of work. Okay, so that's the general statement. Any kind of practice means we use our senses, right? Whether it's the mathematician is using his mind, the tennis player is using, his arms and his legs and all that. And then Prabhupada says, therefore, devotional service and practice means utilizing our different sensory organs in service to Krishna. And then he says there's two kinds of senses, the knowledge acquiring senses, the eyes, the ears, etc. We gain knowledge from them, and the working senses, where here he says that executing the conclusion of thinking, feeling, and willing. Okay, so
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I have a question here.
yes,
Prabhupada is writing. Is Prabhupada, for example, he's using the analogy of a child's ability to walk because the ability is there innately. And does that suggest that because bhakti is also residing with us innately, that it is easy for us to achieve bhakti for the Lord? Is that how I draw the parallel there, or am I reading something that's not there?
Well, I wouldn't say the emphasis here is about the ease, but about the natural, that it's natural.
Okay.
Now, sometimes you would think something that's natural is also easy. So easy is an interesting word because sometimes in one place, Prabhupada talks about, yes, bhakti is easy. The hard thing is gyan, karma, gyan, yoga, things like that. Those are hard, and Mayavadis have to work so hard, or impersonals have to work so hard to get some understanding of Brahman. And Prabhupada said, we just take prasadam, chant, and dance. So in that sense, it is easy, or it's what do we say? Ananda bolo hari bhajabindavan. It's just anand. It's happiness. But the main point he's making here is something a little different. And thank you for bringing it up. So let's look at this paragraph here. This practice is not for developing something artificial. For example, a child learns or practices to walk. This walking is not unnatural. In other words, anyone who has had a child or grandchildren, you would actually get worried if your child or grandchild wasn't walking after a certain age, right? Because it's expected, right? It's natural that the child is going to learn to walk. And I see your hand, Varda Krishna, but I'll just call in 30 seconds. So this is a very, very important spiritual point. So when let's say we're going out and preaching Krishna consciousness, or giving a class to new people, or giving somebody one of Prabhupada's books, or giving them some prasadam. The important point here is we're not giving them something foreign, not something from the outside. We're trying to put Krishna into their heart. We're trying to udoy in Bengali. We're trying to awaken that which is already there. I think we talked about this in the Nectar of Instruction class. That's a very important difference. We're not trying to turn them into, whatever, a person, we're trying to sell them something that they don't need, right? Which is what salespeople often do, right? We're trying to awaken within them what's already there, but has been covered over. So it's a very deep meditation for the person sharing Krishna consciousness with others. Okay, and so therefore it's a very, very important point. Radha Krishna Prabhu, you please enlighten us. I put you on mute because there was some noise, but you could unmute.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. So, Prabhu, we spoke about two things. we spoke about efforts, sadhana, practice. We also spoke about what you are is a reflection of how much mercy you've earned or gained. Or, I would like to use the word, how much mercy you've begged for. So, do we say that on our part, we work hard, we try, but then the final, do we cross the line or not, depends on mercy? Or do we say that sometimes, of course, sometimes even if you don't practice so well, but if you have that spark of sincerity, maybe the mercy will help you cross the line. What is it? Where do we draw the line, or say?
That's a great question. It actually comes up a little later in this chapter.
Okay, I'll wait.
No, that's fine. I'm just going to put you on mute because there's some noise, but anytime you want to say something, just turn off the mute. The way I like to see it is almost like it's teamwork. We're working with Krishna to go back to him. And we do know that the example in the Shastra, and Prabhupada gives the example of the monkey, the baby monkey, and the kitten, right?
Yes, but I'd like to hear you.
Well, as we know, I don't know if you have a lot of monkeys in South India. In Vrindavan, we have too many. And I don't know if this applies to all different varieties of monkeys, but the Vrindavan monkeys for sure, when the mother is jumping from branch to branch, or ruining somebody's garden or whatever, the baby monkey is just in her underbelly and holding on for dear life. In other words, making a big endeavor. And the kitten in the mouth of the cat is making no endeavor. It's just totally dependent on the mercy of mother cat, right? Because the kitten can't do anything. She's just the kitten. You've seen maybe cats carry their children. So, and also we say that when Mother Jashoda tried to bind baby Krishna, the rope was always the width of 2 fingers too short, right? Every time. And the one finger represents our endeavor and the other finger represents Krishna's mercy. And our acharyas tell us that of the two, the more important one is Krishna's mercy. That has the real strength. But Krishna may not have much of an inclination to give mercy to someone who isn't trying, right? But when Krishna sees that we're endeavoring, then yoga shemam vahamyam, he will preserve what we have and he'll carry what we lack. So our big thing is to develop a strong desire and have that desire flood all the other desires that are in our consciousness, in our mind, and in our heart. So both need to be there. But Krishna's kindness, I think we've all experienced probably when we first come to Krishna consciousness, we get this introductory offer and we get some real wonderful, amazing feeling of bliss. Remember that when you first came to Krishna consciousness? Every devotee seemed like they descended from Vaikuntha. Every kirtan was wonderful. Every prasadam, even if it was kheer that was burnt, tastes like nectar. Everything was wonderful. And then after a while, it's just like, I don't know, I can't remember in India. But here, like when you get an internet service in your home, they give you a special deal for 2 years or 1 year. And then after that 1 year is up, then the price goes back up. So they try to bring you in with an introductory price. And then after some time, it goes up. So Krishna also kind of brings us in with some introductory nectar like that. So that's also Krishna's special kindness. So both need to be there. but we do our job and leave the rest to Krishna's mercy. We do our work and then we do the Draupadi program. And it's up to Krishna's kindness and Krishna's watch. And, when he wants to give us what mercy. But we do our part by surrendering, and surrendering means, with really trying to develop affection for Krishna's holy name, attraction to Krishna, or as this verse is saying, a taste for Krishna consciousness. Is that all right, Bharata Krishna Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhu, I think you used a perfect analogy, and you used two terms here. One thing you said is that it's more appropriate to look at it as teamwork between us and Krishna and Guru. And
Guru,
the second, I think among the analogies you gave the cat and the cat and the kitten and the monkey. But the analogy that really caught my is Yashoda Maiya's Damodar Leela, the two-finger shot. So our efforts and Krishna's mercy, and you rightfully, I think very properly, you mentioned that of the two, Krishna's mercy is the more important component. Thank you. I like to.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. So, and Navadip Sachimata, did we answer your query to your satisfaction?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Okay, so let us continue. But it's such an important point philosophically that, and there's a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. If any, I don't know if we have shloka finders, but anyway, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhu Kabunoi Shravanadi Sudachite Korye Udoi. There's that word Udoi. So Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema. Love for Krishna is dormant in our hearts. And Shravanadi Sudachite, by Shravan, by hearing, Adi, chanting, etc. Then it udoi, it awakens. And therefore Prabhupada says in the next paragraph, when we wish to develop our innate capacity, that means in our heart, innate capacity for devotional service, there are certain processes which by our accepting and executing will cause that dormant capacity to be invoked. And what is that practice called? Sadhana bhakti. Practice of bhakti. Then Prabhupada is paraphrasing a verse in the 5th canto, chapter 5 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Nunam pramakta kurute vikarma yat indriya pritya aprinoti, that we are mad after sense gratification. So therefore, every living entity under the spell of material energy is held to be in an abnormal condition of madness. So that's what that paragraph talks about. And then the next paragraph talks about how do you address that madness. And Prabhupada or Rupa Goswami is quoting 7th canto, 1st chapter, verse 32, spoken by Narada Muni to King Yudhisthira, that one has to fix their mind. We have to fix our mind on Krishna by any means. And that is, the key that Prabhupada writes, that is the beginning of sadhana bhakti. Somehow or other, one has to fix his mind on Krishna. So that is, the verse is Smartavya Satatam Vishnu Vismartavya Najatuchit Sarva Vidhi Nisheta Shur Etayor Evaka Kinkuram. That Smartavya Satatam Vishnu. Always remember Krishna. Vismartavya Najatuchit, and don't forget him. That's the essence of bhakti. So, or the essence of sadhana practice. So then Prabhupada talks about the two different divisions of sadhana is Vaidhi sadhana and Raganuga. And the next, I think it's up to and including chapter 15. So from here up to chapter 15 is, no, up to 16 is about Vaidhi. And then there, I think, or maybe, yeah, I can confirm that in a second. Let me just make sure I got that right. I don't want to guide you wrong. Yeah, no, up to 14 is Vaidhi, 15 and 16 are Raganuga, 17 and 18 are Bhava, and 19 is Prema. Okay, so the next many chapters will be about Vaidhi sadhana. So here's a little description of Vaidhi sadhana. In the beginning, by the order of the spiritual master, one rises early in the morning and offers arti, but then he develops real attachment. When he gets this attachment, he automatically tries to decorate the deity and prepare different kinds of dresses and things of different plants to execute devotional service nicely. So the beginning, rising early, offering arti, doing so many devotional activities, that's Vaidhi. Gradually, as we develop real spontaneous attraction, then it can be Raganuga. And Raganuga has a very specific definition. We're going to get into a lot of detail about this in 15 and 16, but just so Anuga means to follow, and Rag means someone who has great attachment. So in this case, attachment to Krishna. So following in the footsteps of those who have great attachment. And they have a specific name, Raganuga. We'll study all this in chapters 15 and 16. So that is, so the Rupa Goswami gives the definition of Vaidhi Bhakti later. When there is no attachment or no spontaneous loving service, and one is engaged in the service of the Lord simply out of obedience to the order of the spiritual master or in pursuance of the scriptures, such obligatory service is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Now, there's nothing wrong with Vaidhi Bhakti. It's wonderful. It's the platform that most of us on this call are on, where we chant a certain manner of rounds, we follow regulated principles, we do service in the temple, or we do service, preaching or whatever. And these are all, under the order of the spiritual master. But gradually, as we become purified and get the association of like-minded devotees, then we may develop Raganuga sadhana. Now it's not, and we'll talk a lot more about that as but for now, there's these two divisions.
One doubt I have to do, this Vaidhi Bhakti, is it as good as Bhakti out of attachment or love for Krishna? Is it as good as that?
One can go back to Godhead by practicing Vaidhi Bhakti, no problem. But Vaidhi, Vaidhi will lead to Bhava and will lead to Prema. Okay.
Will lead to, okay.
But it'll generally, if you really want to get into the details now, it will generally lead to Vaikuntha, because Vaikuntha is a place of awe and reverence, and Vaidhi is that kind of reverential. The Raganuga is a very special gift given by Lord Chaitanya, and it only exists in the residents of Vrindavan. Maybe a little certain residents in Dwarka, but generally it's the residents of Vrindavan. Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda Mai, of course Srimati Radharani, the gopis, the manjaris, the cowherd boys, the gopas, like that, because they have this very special attraction to Krishna that is not because Krishna is God. It's just because he's the darling of Vrindavan. So their rag, their whole, just like if you had glasses that were, tainted red, everything you'd see in the world is red, right? So their consciousness is tainted that way. They just think of Krishna constantly in this incredibly devotional way. Is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay, there's some. Well, thank you, Bajeshri Pran Mataji. She has put the verse there. Very nice. And Sarva, and then Chandra Babu and Vishnupriya have put the reference, and then Sarva Pavan and Abhay have put the English. Thank you. Very helpful indeed. Okay. So, Sham Kudru, I'll answer your question another time. I think that would be a little off topic right now.
Yes, Prabhu.
But is that all right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. But it's, yeah. But both are right in different ways. But we can discuss that another time. And I'd be happy to do that. Okay, so let us go back to this. So I do want to emphasize this point about how important having a taste for Krishna consciousness, and that it's something we kind of have to, I was going to say something we have to work at. It's something we have to go beyond. Wouldn't it be nice? Like, wouldn't it be nice if I really chanted attentive rounds? Wouldn't it be nice if I read the Bhagavatam every day? Wouldn't it be nice if I took prasadam in good consciousness? Wouldn't it be nice? You know, we have to go beyond the wouldn't it be nice to actually doing it. To really control the mind in such a way that we get absorbed in the bhakti, and then Krishna provides a taste like that. And taste is really, it's just such an important thing. You know, this is clear from the second chapter, verse 59 of the Gita. Vishaya vinivartante niraha rashi dehinam rasarvajam rasopyasya param dristva. That literally means param, higher, dristva, taste. It's very difficult to overcome sense gratification any other way except by just getting a higher taste. You know, if you, I don't even know, do they still make Maruti 800s in India?
Yes, true.
Somebody said no, somebody says yes. Okay, so if you have a Maruti 800 and it's the only car you have, even if it's 2010, you take good care of it. You know, right? You make sure that it's running in good order, this and that, right? No problem. But then if someone says, well, you know, Prabhu, you're doing such nice service. You know, I own a Mercedes-Benz dealership. I want to give you an E-Series Mercedes-Benz. And also, I will cover the difference in petrol for the first 5 years. So immediately, the Maruti 800 is the last thing on your mind. You want to take it to the junkyard immediately, or sell it for a few thousand rupees on the internet. It's like you forget about that. So Krishna consciousness is like that Mercedes E-Series. And when we have when we get a taste for that, then the Maruti 800 sense gratification, just like you don't even think about it anymore. You have no interest in it at all. So this is natural in as we advance, as we get a taste for Krishna consciousness. So it really is. If we think, God, it's so hard to give up. It's so hard to give up sense gratification. I'm so attached to this. I'm so attached to that. How am I ever going to do that? The secret is to become attached to Krishna and get a taste for chanting, get a taste for hearing, like that. Any questions, comments about taste?
Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, Achyuta Padarvandadas here.
Yes,
Prabhu, it's a very obvious question. I'm sure this is being used, asked in many, many forums. How do we develop that taste naturally towards
Krishna? It's a good question. I have found association is very, very helpful. In other words, when you associate with someone who has taste, it rubs off. You know, I like this. I think maybe I've told you this before. I like this little mantra: Krishna consciousness is caught as much as it's taught. Right. I remember one time I was going in the temple in morning program in here in Washington D.C. and Vaisheshika Prabhu was there, and it was japa time, and he had he was sitting on a cushion, and he was totally erect, and he had his beads at his heart, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, and he was just totally absorbed in chanting, just like sitting there like a rock, solid, and just Hare Krishna, he didn't have to teach me, he didn't have to quote any verse. I just got inspired just sitting next to him and chanting myself. So that's one thing, is association. And then having a program for hearing and chanting. It's so easy to get distracted from that. We all have difficult jobs where we could just be working them probably until midnight every day. And then there's, in the old days, it was easy, because most devotees never had a television. These days, it doesn't matter if you have a television, right? You have a computer and you have an internet connection. So there's unlimited distractions in that sense. And then there's the anxieties. And so to try to make a program where we put in place the hearing and chanting, and then we take care of all the other things as we can. That's so hearing and chanting. That's the main thing. And then on the negative things is to be super, 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 super careful not to offend Vaishnavas or Vaishnavis, because that's one thing that takes the taste away. When we offend devotees, we get attracted to material things. So we could go on and on, worship Tulsi, this and that, but keep it simple. So try to associate with serious people or listen to the pravachans of such people. Find time for hearing and chanting, and don't offend devotees. And I think that's pretty much a great formula. Is that all right?
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Let's see. Vineet Kumar said, how to understand the relationship between endeavor, mercy of Krishna, and the transition from Vaidhi to Raganuga. Okay, well, the transition, that is a interesting topic. It generally doesn't happen until, I believe it's Nishta, where one's really steady in Krishna consciousness. But like I said, you can just carry on in Vaidhi and Bhava and Prema and go to Vaikuntha. We'll talk more about that, Vineet, when we get to that chapter, because it doesn't really make sense. So we haven't discussed even what it really is. So first we have to discuss what it really is, and then we can answer your question. It'll make more sense after we've done all the way up to chapter 14 in Vaidhi, and then in 15 and 16 in Raganuga. Okay, but we should right now work on our Vaidhi sadhana bhakti sincerely, and Krishna will help us. So it's a little, what's that? Did someone say something? No? Okay, it's a little subtle, but then this verse here from Sukadeva Goswami's second canto, first chapter, verse number 5. My dear king, if you want to be fearless in meeting your death next week, for actually everyone is afraid at the point of death, then you must immediately begin the process of hearing, chanting, and remembering God. So this is a great example of Vaidhi. In other words, his motivation isn't just loving baby Krishna, but his motivation is to become fearless in meeting death, then take to the path of hearing, chanting, and remembering God. So you see that's what that point is in that verse. It's not the spontaneous mood. There's nothing wrong with this, by the way. It's wonderful but that's what we should do. We should get absorbed in the process of hearing and chanting and remembering Krishna. And Prabhupada writes, so Sukadeva Goswami has recommended to Parikshit Maharaj that in order to be fearless of death, one has to hear and chant and remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, by all means. And then a little further, Padma Purana recommends that one always fix his mind on the form of Vishnu. Okay, this is the verse that I was quoting earlier. Smartavya Satatam Vishnu Vi Smartavya Najatuchit. It's from the Padma Purana. It says that one should always fix his mind on the form of Vishnu or Krishna by meditation and not forget him at any moment. This is called Samadhi. And then, let's see. And then probably, let's see. Give me a second here. And then Srila Prabhupada starts talking about Varnashrama. And he says that he's talking about in this sense that to always remember Krishna and never forget him is what the Padma Purana is recommending, right? And does this apply only to Brahmanas? Does this apply only to Shudras? Does this apply only to men? Does this apply only to women? And then Prabhupada says this regulated principle of always remembering Krishna and never forgetting him is applicable to all varnas and ashrams and the caste and occupations, so all of Varnashram. And Prabhupada goes into some description of what the 4 varnas and ashrams are. And then he says it doesn't matter whether one is a beginner, a brahmachari, or a very advanced, a sannyasi. The principle of remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly and not forgetting him at any moment is meant to be followed by everyone without fail. If this injunction is followed, then all other rules and regulations will automatically fall into place. All other rules and regulations should be treated as assistants or servants to this one basic principle. So again, Prabhupada is paraphrasing that the last 2 lines of that verse. Sarva Vidhi Nishedha Sur. Sarva, all. Vidhi and Nisheda, all the do's and don'ts. Sarva Vidhi Nishedha Sur. All the details. Etara, they are kinkaras. They're servants of the principle to always remember Krishna and never forget him. Okay, so that's the principle, and that's for all varnas, all ashram, doesn't matter. The Brahman, Prabhupada will say, the Brahmana may be the head of society, but this applies to everyone. And sometimes the Brahmanas can just be really puffed up. Prabhupada talks about that also in the purport. And so it's just the essential spiritual principle to always remember Krishna, never forget him. So as it says here, to have the target of all of our activities, always the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then again, talking about Varnashram, he says the injunction herein is that one has to act according to his position. So whatever our position is, fine. And by such activities, one must either satisfy Supreme Personality Godhead or else fall down from one's position. So this, we may do our occupational duty, and this is a nice point because this even applies, to us in present day. Well, what if I'm working in a corporate? What is that? Is that Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya? I don't know what that is. But the point is that whatever position we're in, our activities should be to satisfy Krishna. That's the point. That's the key. Any questions, comments on that? Well, I'll just read one more thing about Varnashram, and then I'll take questions and comments. One thing, one second. If the whole Prabhupada writes that if the whole society performs its respective duties and remain, so everyone, okay, so the whole society, but Brahmins, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, etc. If all of them do their duties and remain in Krishna consciousness, there's no doubt that all of its members will live very peacefully and happily. Without wanting the necessities of life, the whole world will be turned into Vaikuntha, a spiritual abode. Even without being transferred to the kingdom of God, by following the injunctions of the Bhagavatam and prosecuting the duties of Krishna consciousness, all human society will be happy in all respects. So that was, the way to be happy is practice Daivi Varnashram, practice Krishna consciousness in the midst of our duties in this world. Okay, any questions or comments on those points?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Somewhere along the line, you mentioned about perform your duties and do seva, and not offend the devotees. But we see that if there is one very what shall I say, very complex hurdle that comes in the way of the devotees, it's maintaining good, healthy relationships.
Yes.
So, sometimes I'm forced to ponder over this and say, a lot of things in Krishna consciousness appear mighty easy on the surface of it, but when you actually get down to doing it, it's a huge test. Like, for example, maintaining good relationships, especially with those you're living. It could be your wife, it could be your kids, it could be your children, it could be your colleagues. Over the years, it tends to become complex.
Yeah. And that's why it's really important to remember the philosophy, right? And even if we're thinking, oh, this person does this wrong and that wrong, and to remember that they're a Vaishnava or a Vaishnavi, and therefore I have to keep it in perspective, right? And remember that I'm dealing with, one has to, let's say husband and wife are initiated by the same spiritual master. So, the husband has to, might get in an argument with his wife, but he also has to remember that his wife is like is his guru's daughter. And how would he respect his, what I mean? So, or Krishna's, devotee, and vice versa with the wife or the husband, as an example. So, although it's, we may get into this or that with other devotees or with someone in our family, we also have to keep the spiritual perspective that as much as I don't like this person sometimes, I have to admit that they're very dear to Krishna and they're serving Prabhupada's mission. And therefore, but you're right, it's kind of like a, what do we call it? A double-edged sword, that by devotee association, we make great advancement. And by offending devotees, we really hurt our bhakti, right? So it's a challenge to maintain the right consciousness when we're in the association of devotees. I remember one senior devotee was joking once. He was a joke, but he said, devotee association, you can't live with them and you can't live without them. So, and also keep in perspective, this life is so short. It's so short. And sometimes we get into the most petty things. Somebody didn't wash the dishes properly, or somebody didn't, whatever, make the car payment on time, or whatever it is. And we get all worked up about that, forgetting the fact that we're eternal. And this life is temporary. And it has a purpose. And why should I get so caught up? The mind can get, just like, the mind can get into the Kamsa Shishupal program, right? Because Kamsa and Shishupal were so fixed on Krishna in disliking him. And we can sometimes get so fixed in somebody, a friend or a family member who's doing something wrong, and forget about Krishna. Is that all right, Hare Krishna?
Oh yeah, I feel okay because seems like I have a lot of company.
Yes. Yes, it was funny you're thinking that, because I've been married 31 years, and I was just thinking about this because the other day I was two friends of mine their children were getting married, and it was on Zoom because it was in England. Maybe Radha Jivan Prabhu, and the head Pujari of Bhaktivedanta Manor. I know him well, and his name Gadadhar Prabhu. A very pakka. He's been head Pujari for like 30 years, right? So and then Kripamoya Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple, is initiating spiritual master. He was doing the ceremony, and I was just watching it, and the very nice couple, by the way, very nice boy, very nice girl, very from very good families. Both no, one is a Pakka Gujarati. I think the other one might be Marwari, but anyway, whatever. But anyway, very nice devotees, and. They're just talking about the importance of marriage vows and the importance of marrying a good devotee and all the things. Kripamoya Prabhu was speaking very, very nicely. And it just made me, kind of remember that I have to, I'm trying to remember, like, when I was first getting married, I had to be so nice to this person and so good. And, she's a good devotee and et cetera. And I'm thinking 31 years later, I might sometimes forget that. And just treat her like, yeah, my wife, blah, 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 right? But just attending that wedding reminded me, I should try to, keep some of that, the good parts of that early married life in my consciousness, and remember that I'm dealing with a great, soul who's very, very dear to Srila Prabhupada and to her Guru Maharaj, like that. So whether it's marriage or whether it's friendship, devotees are special. I can read you. Give me a second here. Nice letter from Srila Prabhupada about this. Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, so someone was asking Prabhupada about the fault of devotees. And Prabhupada says, starting here, it is not so much that because there may be some faults in our God brothers and God sisters, or because there may be some mismanagement or lack of cooperation, that this is due to being impersonalist. No, it is the nature of the living condition to always have some fault. Even in the spiritual world, there is some fault and envy. Sometimes the gopis will quarrel over Krishna's favor. And once Krishna was so much attracted by Radharani that by mistake he tried to milk the bull instead of the cow. And sometimes when the gopis used to put on their dress and makeup for seeing Krishna, they would be too much hasty and smear kumkum and mascara in the wrong places, and their ornaments and dresses would appear as if small children have been trying to dress themselves, and they were not very expert like that. So we should not expect that anywhere there is any utopia. Rather, that is impersonalism. People should not expect that even in the Krishna conscious society, there will be utopia. Because devotees are persons, therefore there will always be some lacking. But the difference is that they're lacking because they have given up everything to serve Krishna. Money, jobs, reputation, wealth, big educations, everything. Their lackings have become transcendental because despite everything they may do, their topmost intention is to serve Krishna. Quote from the Bhagavad Gita, one who is engaged in devotional service, despite the most abominable action, is to be considered saintly because he is rightly situated. Now listen to this sentence. The devotees of Krishna are the most exalted persons on this planet, better than kings, all of them. So we should always remember that. And like the bumblebee, always look for the nectar or the best qualities of a person, not like the utopians, who are like the flies who always go for the open sores or find the faults in a person. And because they cannot find any utopia, or because they cannot find anyone without faults, they want to become void, merge, nothing. They think this is utopia, to become void of personality. So if there is sometimes slight disagreements between devotees, it is not due to impersonalism, it is because they are persons. And such disagreements should not be taken very seriously. The devotee is always pessimistic about the material world, but he is very optimistic about the spiritual life. So in this way, you should consider that anyone engaged in Krishna's service is always the best person. I am very pleased you are assisting your God brother so nicely. Yes, this is our real position, to be servants of the servants of the servants. Is that nice quote, Radha Krishna Prabhu?
Oh, Prabhu, amazing. Thank you very much.
That's me. Okay. So there we have one more, really, like I said, there's a pretty simple section, but there's one more, just the last paragraph I wanted to read, unless anyone has another question or comment. Okay, so let's read this last paragraph together. Or last paragraph. Thus, the Krishna conscious movement is so nice that there is no need for even designating oneself Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, or Sannyas. Let everyone be engaged in whatever occupation he now has. So that includes all of you who are working corporate jobs or this or that. Simply let him worship Lord Krishna by the result of his activities in Krishna consciousness. That will adjust the whole situation, and everyone will be happy and peaceful within the world. In the Narada Pancharatra, the regulated principles of devotional service are described as follows. Any activity sanctioned in the revealed scriptures and aiming at the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are accepted by saintly teachers as the regulated principles of devotional service. If one regularly executes such service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master, and gradually he rises to the platform of serving the pure in pure love of God. So we may have this occupation, we may have this body or that occupation, but we try to find ways that we can give pleasure to Krishna. Full stop. So questions, comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Ramakrishna Prabhu, you go ahead. I'll ask next.
No, Prabhu, please.
No, please go. Please go.
I'll
I'll wait. Please go.
Oh, now there's a big conflict.
Prabhu, thanks, Prabhu. Prabhu, in one of the earlier paragraphs, when talking about the sadhana bhakti, we see that getting up early in the morning, offering Mangalarti, and then refraining from material activities, and then obeisance to spiritual master, and so on goes. And
Yes.
then Prabhu, in the last but one paragraph, where Krishna says to Uddhava in Canto 11, people are rendering so many activities, both as given in the scriptures as well as other mundane material activities also. So people who do it actually, I mean, in my own consciousness. So there are, I'm sorry, I will just read that particular thing to this. I got a slight confusion, wanted to seek a clarification. So this because Supreme Padam Godhead maintains, sorry. Yeah. If by the result of either of such activities, they worship me in Krishna consciousness, then automatically they become very happy within this world as well as the next. Prabhu, my question here is, like me, many working professionals is refraining from material activities. Prabhu, we are from morning to evening, people like us are working in the offices and do various activities which the particular job requires us. Hardly, honestly, during the time of 7 hours or 8 hours time, I don't even have the time to think about Krishna. Though I get up in the morning, do all these normal activities of performing puja, chanting, everything. But during that period, we are left with no time to think about God, doing so many activities pertaining to the office job. In that case, Prabhu, such activities, can they be classified as, material activities only without any, reference to that Krishna consciousness? Or as the old adage goes, work is worship. So if you do your office activities also sincerely, properly, dedicatedly, that is also satisfying Krishna. How to, should I understand this?
There's different levels. So the simplest level is that by some of the fruits of our work should be given to Krishna, one way or another. That means the money that we make, something should be given to Krishna. I think we talked about the 50% thing once, but whatever it is, but some fruit of that hard work should be given to Krishna. That will really be very helpful for us. And that's always very individual. Some people, their job, they're barely, paying their bills and things, but they can give just get into the habit of giving to Krishna, and then maybe as they become higher in the organization, they get more money. But the idea of being, trying to connect some of the fruits to Krishna, this is recommended in chapter 9, verse 27 of the Bhagavad Gita. Yad karosi, yad asnasi, yad jahosi, tadasi yad. Now, there may be ways, I think I told you about a friend of mine who's has a very, very busy life. He's a very, very successful businessman. He's a Prabhupada disciple. So he grew up, he, unlike many people on this call, he lived in the brahmachari ashram for some years before, getting married and all that. So, but he has a little reminder on his computer. He uses Microsoft Outlook. And so every 15 minutes, a little reminder comes up saying, think of Krishna, say a quick prayer, and it just helps him. Even if it's just for 20 seconds, he remembers the purpose of life and remembers, Krishna. And then he, goes back to doing his very challenging business that he's running. So there may be ways to do that, right? There may be ways to take I think I told you when I was becoming a devotee, I was very young, 17 years old, I think. I was working in America, it's very common for a teenager to take a job after school. So I was working in a law firm where my mother was also working. And one of the clerks was a devotee. And what he did, I was very impressed. He was not a shaved up devotee wearing devotee, but he was like us. but he would spend his lunch hour every day. He'd go to his car and he'd read the Bhagavatam. And this is just not like a fixed up person like you all. I don't think he ever got initiated. I'm trying to find him for the last so many years, and even people with really good internet skills haven't been able to find him. But anyway, be that as it may, so there may be ways during the day, and I know what it's like. I also work, and it can be very passionate and all this. But there may be ways that we can have little glimpses or little ways to remind us of Krishna, even in the midst of the workday. I don't think we should just say, it's impossible, but say, what could I do? What could I do? Right? Like that. So those are two thoughts. One is to give some fruit, and two is to find some way, even if it's, something that pops up on your Outlook every half hour, 15 minutes for a second, but there may be ways to do that. And of course, also, if we are married and we have a devotee family, then we know the fruits of our work are also going to maintain devotees. And so there's that. But we want to somehow, Krishna says in chapter 8, verse 7, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mama nusmar yudhyacha. He says to Arjuna, first remember me, then do your duty. And of course, one of the most important things is to have a good morning program. Now, we may not, it depends on our lifestyle and this and that. We may not have a Mangala, whatever we might do at our home, but at least try to have really a solid program for japa and for hearing. That will be very, very helpful. I know some of you have very pakka program at your homes. That's wonderful. Or you live near the temple and you can attend that. Is that helpful, Prabhu?
So Prabhu, my understanding is that if you share the fruits of the material activities, Bhagavan, Krishna will still be satisfied with the material activities.
Yes,
and
it
also
purifies the material activities.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. You can look up that verse 927. Not now. I mean, you can if you want to look now, but anyway, it's well, I might as well look it up now. 927. Yat kurosi, yad asnasi, yad johosi tadasi yat tapasyasi kuntaya, tat kurusamararpadam. And so yat kurosi, whatever you do, yat asnasi, whatever you eat, yat johosi, whatever you offer, whatever you give away, dadasi, whatever, if you do some tapasya, whatever you're doing, basically, in other words, whatever you're doing, do that as an offering unto me. So you're going to do it anyway. So offer at least some part of it to Krishna. That's different than the verse before that. The verse before that is about pure bhakti. It says, if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. So that's just like, Krishna, what do you want? Oh, you want a leaf or flower? Okay, I'll give you that. This next verse is saying, okay, you're going to work, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. At least offer some of it to me. Krishna's saying, do it for me. Okay, so slight difference. Someone else had a question, I believe.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, that was me who had that question.
Yes, Prabhu.
I have a couple of questions, Prabhu, and very unrelated questions with each other. In the chapter, of course, we talk about Varnashrama, and then the English term Prabhupada is using is the social order and spiritual order.
Yes.
So under social order is your Varnas and spiritual order is your Ashramas.
Correct.
And in Bhagavad Gita, there is mention of the Varnas because Lord says Chaturmarna Varnamaya system. But there is no reference to the ashramas, direct reference to ashramas in the Bhagavad Gita.
There is in chapter 4. 27, 28, something like that. Let me see if I can find it. There's not a lot, but it says the unadulterated brahmachari. Oh, my Veda base just crashed. It'll take me a second to reopen it. It's not reopening yet. It says okay, there it is. Let's see now. It's I'm pretty sure it's chapter 4, and it's towards the end of the chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Verse 26. There's not a whole lot, but hold on, let me. And of course, there is a lot about sannyas. There's tons about sannyas, right? I mean, there's whole chapters practically about that. But here, the unadulterated brahmacharis, see that, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses into the fire of the senses. And then Prabhupada explains the 4 divisions here. And he said, a brahmachari hears only words concerning Krishna consciousness. Hearing is the basic principle for understanding, and therefore the pure brahmachari engages fully in Harir Nam Anukirtanam. And then he says he restrains himself from hearing mundane things. Similarly, the householders who have a license for sense gratification perform such acts with great restraint. Sex life, intoxication, and eating are general tendencies, but the regulated householder does not indulge in them. Okay, and then there is a number of references to sannyas. Is that all right, Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhu, but see, if you look at chapter 18, there's a lot of details which talks about, the varnas.
Yeah.
And that it talks about the duties or the qualities and activities of the 4 social orders, but not as much detail covered about the spiritual orders in the Bhagavad Gita. So maybe if you can, maybe at different occasions, share some references of both the orders that we can understand from. And my other related question to this was, is either of the order above each other, or are they intertwined completely?
The 4 varnas and 4 ashrams?
Yes.
Are they intertwined? Yes, they are intertwined. For example, only brahmanas take sannyas, as an example, right?
Yeah.
And generally, sudras are always householders. One ashram, like that. And I think Kshatriyas can go up. There are Vanaprastha Kshatriyas. And then for brahmacharis, I'm not coming to my mind right now. So varnashram is always a very tricky subject for a number of reasons. First of all, it's impossible to follow varnashram the way they did in previous times. If you read the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam from like the 9th chapter onwards, and you hear about vanaprasthas wearing tree bark and things like that. And so I guess I'm a vanaprastha, and I'm wearing cotton, not tree bark, as an example. And all of that. And then there's the whole relationship between varnashrama and pure devotional service. And so we only accept Daivi varnashrama. There's even something called Asuric varnashrama, where you're just, by birth. And of course, we know Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta fought so hard for varnashram based on guna and karma, not janma. Right? Because by janma, I don't know, how many of you are born in Brahmin families? There's some Sharmas here, I'm sure. You don't have to raise your hand, it'll be embarrassing maybe. But only you can get a Brahmin initiation by the Vedic system, bus. And certainly not somebody born in New York. There's no chance, right? So follow that form of varnashram, obviously. Even now, please don't take this wrong. But even our Srila Prabhupada was not born in a Brahmin family. Right? But he's the topmost Paramahansa. Top of the top of the top of the top. Right? So clearly we're following the very much Mahaprabhu's program and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's program, and he gave Brahman, and Prabhupada even expanded it more, giving Westerners sannyas, giving Westerners, and even giving women Brahman initiation. So the point is the essence is the guna and karma. And I was thinking for myself, it's such a kitchery in Kali Yuga, because I can give a class like this, right? This is a Brahminical service. And then I'm managing some projects in ISKCON, so that's more of Kshatriya. And then I have this this work that I'm doing and trying to make enough money so that I can retire soon. So kind of get a little Vaishya mentality going there. And then I do have a boss in my job, so that's and not only that, but when in America, when the garbage needs to be taken out, I take it out. So that's kind of a Sudra thing. So in one day, I'm doing all 4 varnas. So Prabhupada, very much related varnashrama to bhakti. And if, we accept it because it can help our bhakti. And in our society, we're still trying to figure out how to apply it. And Prabhupada's statements that 50% of his work was not done in establishing varnashram, but that means there's still the other 50% that still has to go on, the preaching and the deity worship and all that. So it's a big topic. But I hope that helps a little bit, Rasa Sindhu.
Some extent, yes. Yeah. In interest of time, I'll save my other 2 questions for the next class.
Yeah, we're out of time, aren't we? Yeah, we're out of time.
Almost. Yes.
But we did finish this chapter. So please, we'll go over the other homeworks that Prabhuji brought up next week. But your job is to we're going to be covering chapter 3, the eligibility of a candidate for accepting devotional service. So the beginning stage, the eligibility to start bhakti. So thank you very much, Prabhus, Matajis. So nice to get your association and to talk about Krishna on this lovely Saturday morning in India, Friday night in America. Hare Krishna, Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha.
Thank you.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandat Pranam. Thank you so much.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So over to Premdata Prabhu and Achyuta Prabhu for announcements.
Achyut Prabhu, you want to say something?
Prabhu, I think we can very briefly update to all the devotees about a conversation with His Grace VrajVihari Prabhu for the exams. So you can share those conversations, Prabhu. Prabhu. Thank you.
So there was a discussion with the VrajVihari Prabhu, as Achyut Prabhu told. We had a meeting. So regarding, we had raised this thing. One of the impact was that homework assignment, which we had raised with Prabhu, that devotees are struggling. So as an impact of that, Prabhu told, okay, he will take it up. and he acknowledged that those but as you see that those questions that doesn't mean the questions are not there, but maybe they were not direct. So maybe that's the reason devotees struggled. But maybe after a couple of times Prabhu take these homework assignments, we'll have a better understanding how to take it up forward. So I hope it helped. Other thing was regarding the exams. So since it was we who had gone back to VrajVihari Prabhu during as soon as our NOI was over, to say that devotees are struggling with Corona, and we are not in a condition to further move in terms of exams and open book and all that. We need time. So at that point of time, Prabhu had told, I remember we had a meeting regarding that also, and Prabhu had graciously accepted that, okay, we understand India is in a bad shape, so we will merge all the exams. But as you all suggested last week, so Prabhu is okay with conducting NOI exam separately. So we'll discuss with Prabhu about how and when. But then his question is that have all the devotees finished other things like open book, etc. So I was seeing the list. There are still 21 devotees who have not done open book questions. So I think if we want to move forward with NOI exam in a couple of weeks from now, so that means open book exam has to be submitted. So I think we will have to take some action on this. 21 devotees who have not submitted are requested to submit it by next week. And with the coordination committee, we decided that those devotees who will not be submitting it by next week will not receive NOD link until they submit and they become eligible to NOD this thing. And then once we have all this, we'll submit it to evaluators, and we'll work on the final date for NOI exams, which will be in a couple of weeks now. So please start preparing for our NOI exam. So further information will be given as soon as we submit the open book answers to the evaluation team. So yeah, but in principle, Prabhu has agreed that it will be done in a couple of weeks. It all depends on administrative things which we wind up from our side, which I think biggest one is the open book question. So it will be, everybody has time till next week to submit their open book questions. And those who will not be receiving, those who are not submitting NOI pending assignments, shloka recitation as well as open book by next week, by next maybe Wednesday or Thursday, because Varaha Prabhu is working, so he need time to look at the list. So I would say maybe by next Thursday, those who will not be able to submit will not receive the link for NOD next session. And even the circle servants will not be authorized to forward them the link for NOD sessions. So sorry for being a little bit this thing, but I think since it was a wish of all the majority of the devotees to go ahead with NOI exams, so I think there is a need for this. Okay, so that's what we have.